This is CBC Vancouver News.
Minimizes impact on public budgets, and yet at the same time delivers affordable housing now.
The Premier unveils a massive new housing project in partnership with First Nations in Vancouver, but will it work? Plus, a fire wipes out a historic and vital bridge in Kamloops. Police are investigating it as suspicious. And
the clinic that schedules the bilateral breast ultrasounds is not taking any more patients.
Patients and doctors alike are worried about a shortage of breast ultrasound clinics in BC. Hello, I'm Janella Hamilton. Thanks for joining us. Just days before the expected start of the provincial election, the Premier is touting a massive new housing project in partnership with local First Nations. As Michelle Gassoub reports, it's a unique financial arrangement David Eby claims will change the home ownership game.
From Premier David Eby, a pledge of 2,600 new homes sold at 60% of market value.
Is a financing tool that protects taxpayers, that minimizes impact on public budgets, and yet at the same time delivers affordable housing now.
It will be on what's known as the Heather Lands in Vancouver, just west of Queen Elizabeth Park. It's owned by the Musqueam, Squamish, and Tsleil-Waututh First Nations. The Attainable Housing Initiative promises to get more first-time homebuyers into the market.
So make no mistake about it, this is a massive win, not just for this neighborhood and Vancouver, but for the region and the province.
So how will it work? Buyers will initially finance 60% of the market price for a home, with the province kicking in the other 40%. The buyer will repay that 40% if they sell or after 25 years. Buyers will only need to put a 5% down payment on their initial 60%. Studio 1, 2, and 3 bedroom units will be available for 99-year strata leaseholds on First Nations-owned land.
The solution to a housing crisis. We are so familiar with that in our communities.
The project was proposed by the 3 First Nations, and the site will also include green spaces and childcare.
It is a bit of a niche product, but I think you probably have a fair number of upper middle class households who have a down payment but insufficient income to get into a new apartment, who might find this quite attractive.
Buyers will still need to pay back the full 40% even if the housing market takes a downturn. But the BC government is banking on the model, and Eby says it can be scaled up.
This can be replicated across British Columbia in markets that are under significantly less affordability challenge.
There are other requirements. Owners must use the units as their principal home, must be first-time homebuyers, and there's a cap on household income. With a provincial election on our doorstep, it's another attempt by the province to put home ownership within reach for more people. Michelle Gassoub, CBC News, Vancouver.
A massive early morning fire has destroyed a historic and vital link over the South Thompson River in Kamloops. The Red Bridge collapsed after being engulfed by flames. The CBC's Jessica Wallace has more on what happened and the challenges ahead.
The iconic silhouette of the Red Bridge in Kamloops is no more. As you can see, the bridge burned down earlier this morning. The span has connected the Kamloops Reserve with the city of Kamloops downtown. For many years, it's a historic wooden bridge, and crews are still on scene here mopping up after the early morning fire.
I don't think it'll ever be rebuilt again, so yeah.
It's devastating, actually, and I think and I'm surprised and grateful that it didn't pass on to all the trees and even worse.
Dozens of people have been gathered here on the beach just in disbelief about what happened.
Oh, it's a huge impact. I mean, I don't know the car count, but it's a huge impact. And but again, it's burnt. It's fallen in the river. We got to move on as quick as we can and get some solutions.
No cause of the fire has been determined or communicated with media, so we'll have to wait and see on the cause as well.
I remind people this is not a City of Kamloops bridge. This is a Ministry of Transportation, Highways and Infrastructure bridge.
So it is their bridge that we are helping them deal with in the situation. Lots of working discussions going on already with Kamloops and Kuppi Casimir and their band as how we can maintain and figure this out. I just want people to remember today is a day to remember, a day to reflect, take a deep breath, be patient, take a few moments, leave a little extra early, be kind to others because our traffic is going to be a challenge, and we'll get through this. We will.
We reached out to the Ministry of Transportation and we're waiting to hear back from them, but we do know that Kam's Fire Rescue is meeting with city officials as well as the ministry to determine the next steps. Jessica Wallace, CBC News, Kamloops.
Patients and doctors alike are concerned a lack of breast ultrasound clinics in BC means many cancers can go undetected. It's particularly worrisome for those who need more than a routine mammogram to ensure their breast health. As Belle Puri reports, the backlog of appointments is so intense, patients can't even get on a waiting list.
Over the course of her adult life, Erin Bell has been diligent about her breast health.
I was due for a mammogram last September, so I went. And I got the report back. Everything was fine. I just have very dense breasts.
Dense breasts put women at a heightened risk of cancer. They can be up to 6 times more likely to develop it in their lifetime. Erin's doctor recommended a breast screening ultrasound between her bi-yearly mammograms. That ultrasound should happen right about now.
So I got a call from my doctor's office, from the reception there, saying that the clinic that schedules the bilateral breast ultrasounds is not taking any more patients.
For the most part, there's only one clinic in BC that does the majority of MSP-covered breast screening ultrasounds in the province.
It's largely financial, and so the fee is really not adequate to justify the time that it takes to do a full both sides screening breast ultrasound, and so most places are saying we won't do it.
Last November, Victoria General Hospital implemented an evening breast screening ultrasound shift using an automated system and no technician.
We only let our most experienced technologists do the screening ultrasound here.
Screening ultrasounds are necessary because dense tissue and tumors look the same in mammograms. It's almost impossible to detect cancer.
You can barely see it here, but there's a lump hiding in this dense tissue. And when we do her ultrasound, here's jumping out at you. It's very conspicuous. That's the cancer. Women are certainly being diagnosed later whose cancers are missed on their screening mammograms. Those cancers, you know, they continue to grow and potentially spread, and they're usually eventually found when they're big enough to be feelable as a lump.
BC was the first province in Canada to provide breast density information with routine mammogram results. As a result, in the 5 years since, the number of patients referred for breast screening ultrasounds has increased significantly. BC's health minister agrees access to the test needs to be expanded.
And that access, we're happy to look at issues around fee codes to make sure that doctors have the right incentives.
In 2022, the Vancouver clinic did over 3,000 screening ultrasounds. It can't handle anymore. The only option for those who can't get in here is to turn to private clinics. The cost of a screening ultrasound is $700.
$700 is a lot of money. We have health coverage. We're not supposed to have to pay for things.
The test is important, Erin says, as early breast cancer detection is known to save lives. Belle Puri, CBC News, Vancouver.
The new Cha-Nulth Tribal Council has declared a state of emergency over the toxic drug crisis after the deaths of 2 Ahousaht First Nation members and many others in their communities. Now they're calling for better supports.
We need to meet the needs of our people in the 14 communities that are here. A year ago, we had a SAT called a state of emergency. Nothing has happened. Our rural and remote communities need a lot of help.
Sayers is asking for funding to set up a rehabilitation and detoxification center that can employ culturally appropriate treatment. She says she's met with the province and health officials and is meeting with the federal government next week as the community grieves those they have lost.
We're asking British Columbians to ask their candidates running in this next provincial election, what are you going to do about it? What are you going to do about all these families that have lost so many people to the mental health and opioid crisis? Because these aren't just statistics. These are real people that we've lost in our communities.
First Nations Health Authority data shows last year First Nations people were killed by drug poisonings at a rate about 6 times higher than other people in BC. BC's police watchdog is investigating a police shooting that left a woman dead in Surrey. Mounties say around 4:40 this morning they received a report of a disturbance at a home near 62nd Avenue and 180A Street in Surrey's Cloverdale neighborhood. According to the Independent Investigations Office, police learned that the woman was reportedly holding a weapon near a toddler who she had locked herself in a room with. Police subsequently shot the woman. She died at the scene. There were no reported injuries to the young child. The IIO says it's now reviewing the details of what unfolded and whether the police's use of force was necessary, reasonable, and proportionate under the circumstances. The family of a West Vancouver woman is sharing its grief after their wife and mother was one of 2 guests killed when a vehicle crashed into a crowd of people at a wedding celebration 2 years ago. A 65-year-old woman has now been sentenced under the Motor Vehicle Act for driving without due care and detention. Saurabh Sandhu spoke with the family about their tragic loss and their frustration over BC's no-fault insurance system.
Leong Kong tends to the plants his late wife Annie brought to their home.
My wife is a green thumb. She looks after all the plants and the gardens.
After her death in 2022, Leong found out he simply didn't have the same touch as she did.
What do I do with this? Where do I cut? Where do I prune? Right? And when some of the plants died, oh, I feel so bad.
Leong and Annie were at a wedding in West Vancouver when another woman drove her car up a shared driveway and crashed into a crowd of people, killing 2.
It was supposed to be that Christmas of that year that we were supposed to come together. Unfortunately, we all got together for her funeral.
This week, the woman behind the wheel in the crash, Hong Shu, was fined $2,000 and prohibited from driving for 5 years. There were no criminal charges, and she was sentenced under the Motor Vehicle Act.
Shock, disbelief, outrage that a charge like that was handed down.
The driver pleaded guilty to driving without due care, and defense lawyer Ian Donaldson says she has given up her license voluntarily.
Under Canadian law, we don't punish people, generally speaking, for pure accidents. We insist on a blameworthy mental state.
The family says such an outcome has inflicted even further pain.
She is only charged for a minor traffic offense. So to this day, legally, no one is accountable for her death. So that I cannot reconcile.
ICBC paid the family a lump sum for their loss, but because of BC's no-fault insurance, they are not able to sue for more.
We have no interest in monetary compensation, and we're not interested in any of this amount because under Chinese culture, we treat this as blood money. We will not touch it. We want it to be in a form to help the needy students.
He says they would have used any compensation to fund a scholarship in Annie's memory. Saurabh Sandhu, CBC News, West Vancouver.
Premier David Eby spent part of the day addressing local elected officials. It was his last public appearance before launching his campaign to get re-elected. CBC's Chad Pawson has more from the Union of BC Municipalities Convention in Vancouver.
More than 2,200 local mayors, councillors, regional directors, First Nation leaders crowded into a large convention hall here today, all to see Premier David Eby before he boards a campaign bus Friday. Now, he started by recognizing the many challenges communities are facing on affordability tied to inflation, a lack of affordable, appropriate housing, gaps in healthcare, and challenges to BC's resource sector. Now, that's a key economic driver for the province. Eby also listed off his accomplishments, many from his busy 2 years as premier, such as ramping up housing starts, addressing healthcare shortages, and trying to make life more affordable. Now, he also set up the choice between himself and his rival, BC Conservative leader John Rustad.
To support people, to support the constituents that we all represent, British Columbians, now is the time that we need to be building, not cutting. We've got to build the schools and the hospitals and the roads and the transit systems and the infrastructure that makes it possible for our communities to be successful, to grow, to have that quality of life that every British Columbian deserves.
Now, Eby did not make a big policy announcement here, but said 250,000 people had been connected with doctors in the last 12 months, and another 160,000 would be connected in the next 6 months. Eby also provided some previews of the NDP's platform that's upcoming, such as promising a bigger police presence in the core of cities and towns struggling with social disorder. Now, the BC Conservative leader will address delegates on Friday, along with the Greens' Sonia Furstenau. Chad Parsons, CBC News, Vancouver.
Still to come, a Nanaimo mom is speaking out about support delays she says has kept her son out of school. More on that story after the break. School is back in session across BC, but one little boy in Nanaimo is still at home, and his mom is speaking out. She says support delays have kept her son out of school. As Claire Palmer reports, the local union says it's a problem of how education assistants are handled.
It's the third week back to school, but Daniel Gardner is here at home instead of starting kindergarten with his peers.
Quite emotional for me, right? Because I put in so much effort to make sure he would be there and that he would be able to hit the ground running with his class.
Daniel is blind, has autism and epilepsy. Gardner says she first contacted the school district this past January to explain her son's needs, but she says it wasn't until the first day of school that she was told he wouldn't be starting with his peers and was informed the next day that no EA had been hired.
There needs to be the funds and the supports in place before the start of the school year so that children with disabilities can start at the same time as their peers.
The school district says part of the problem is the struggle to find qualified EAs, saying in a statement, while the district continues to actively recruit and train staff for our learners with diverse needs and disabilities, staffing shortages are impacting both public and private education and other sectors across the province. But it's not just Gardner raising the alarm. QP 606, representing school district support workers, says that EA hours are being cut and that retention wouldn't be such a big issue if EAs were compensated fairly.
And most of our EAs are working 2-3 jobs all the time. It's really hard. We want to see some true investment in EAs. I know the trustees were being told by senior management that, we just have to hire more EAs. And we're trying to tell them, but there's no more EAs. There's no waiting list to get in here.
The district says it can't add money to the province's fund for workers, but remains committed to working with CUPE to add additional EA hours for the year within what's available. Meanwhile, Gardner says the district offered to reallocate another child's EA for 2 days of the week, which she says is frustrating given the months of prior communication.
This is a systemic problem that every single child with a disability is facing on one level or another, whether it's as significant as my son being fully excluded from the start of school, or whether a child is being left out of a field trip or accessing an activity or learning a specific subject.
She says she's still waiting to hear when her son can finally head off to kindergarten. Claire Palmer, CBC News, Nanaimo.
Here we have a live shot of a very colorful science world tonight. Darius will have our full forecast coming up next.
Hi, I'm Amy Bell, and this is your CBC Inbox. CBC returns as the exclusive media partner of Splash, Arts Umbrella's annual gala and art auction, October 5th. The event supports children and youth programming through arts education. For tickets and information, visit artsumbrella.com. And never miss a special programming series, event, or contest. Subscribe to CBC Vancouver's e-newsletter at cbc.ca/Vancouver Inbox and keep connected with us.
The weather update is brought to you by Direct Buy Furnace. To cool and clean the air in your home, call Direct Buy Furnace. Installing Trane, the most reliable heating and cooling brand.
Darius Madavi joins us now with a look at our weather. Darius, what is it looking like for people out there?
Well, we do have some cloud coming in and out over the next few days, but we do seem like temperature's going to jump a bit into early next week. So, something on the horizon. For now, let's take a look at all the cloud that we have in parts of the south coast. You can see here a lot of that clearing out for tomorrow, especially for the island. Now, it may stick around for the morning here in Vancouver, but then clear out pretty quickly as we get into the afternoon hours. Then the next wave of cloud moves in sort of in the afternoon Friday for the North Island, and then continues to make its way down. Here, it seems like we will have lots of sunny breaks on Saturday, although some cloud as well. Then as we get into later in the day Saturday and especially Sunday, we may see some precipitation. Now, some models, like we just saw, are calling for some showers early on Saturday. I wouldn't count on it, but it is a possibility, so keep that in mind. But for the most part, expect to see not too much here in the Lower Mainland, although if you are on the island, especially the northern half of the island, that is a real possibility. Now, if we take a look across the province, expect to see something pretty similar, especially here in the south. Gusty conditions up north, but down here, we're going to see a little bit of precipitation come in and out, but mostly sunny skies as we head into the weekend. Lots of precipitation crashing into the north coast and up in the northwest, but for everybody else, not too much activity until, again, we get into overnight Saturday into Sunday, and then we start to see that rain really move in for parts of the province, especially in the central interior. Here, we're switching to another model because it's the other one is too it doesn't extend out far enough, but just this coarse grain model, just to give you an idea of how widespread that precipitation might be as we get into Saturday, and then another wave of it crashing in as we get, on Sunday, not Saturday, and then another wave of it as we get into Monday as well. Now, temperatures are not going to be changing as much as the cloud and the rain forecast. Those are going to stay pretty consistently at or just below seasonal over the next few days, and then a bit of a jump as we get, again, into next week. And then across the province, expect, again, to see plenty of sunshine, a little bit of precipitation, and that's the story here in Vancouver as well. Here in Vancouver, expect to see, again, lots of sunshine, a little bit of cloud moving in and out, and then especially as we get into the weekend, a little bit of showery activity. Janella.
Thank you so much, Darius.
Thank you.
That is your late news for Thursday, September 19th. Thank you so much for joining us tonight. For news on the go at any hour, you can always visit our website at cbc.ca/BC. Have a great night.